Unit 2, Topic 8, Tonicity and Osmoregulation. This might look a little bit different than some of the other lecture videos. It's a really short unit, and most of these are practice problems. So let's get started. So, a review on osmosis. Think to yourself, what is osmosis and what is happening in this picture below? First of all, osmosis is the movement of water from an area of low solute concentration to high solute concentration. So, what's happening in this picture is we can see on the left here, we have a tube, there is a semi permeable membrane, and here, let me see if I can get my markup tool. Here we go. So, there's your semi permeable membrane. Come on. Here we go. Right in through right there. And we can see on one side we have a couple solutes. On the other side we have many more solutes. And over time, the water is moving from the area that only has a couple solutes to the one that has more. And what I like to think of this as is like diluting something. You make some Kool-Aid, you put too much sugar into it. You're not going to add more sugar to dilute it. You're going to add more water. So that's essentially what osmosis is water will move from an area of low solute concentration to an area of high solute concentration over time. So there's a balance that water has to be kept in any sort of cell. So tonicity is what we call it. It's the ability of an extracellular solution to cause a cell to gain and lose water. So we saw this a little bit when we did our dialysis lab. It depends on the concentration of solutes that cannot pass through the cell membrane. So remember, our cell membrane is made up of a bunch of different phospholipids, that you have a hydrophobic head and a hydrophilic tail, and there are some substances that can pass through easily and some that can't. So really depending on those three types of those substances, it really depends on whether the cell is going to gain and lose water. So we'll get into it. Cells can be in three types of solutions. So remember, when we're talking about isotonic, hypertonic, and hypotonic, we are talking about the solutions that the cells are in, not the cells themselves. So it is sort of, depending on the perspective that you're looking at it, isotonic, hypertonic, and hypotonic. Osmoregulation is the cell's ability to regulate their own solute concentrations and maintain a water balance. So we're all trying to maintain this homeostasis, this balance of things that are going on outside of the cell and things that are going on inside the cell, and osmoregulation is how the cells are able to regulate that. Animal cells will react differently than cells with cell wall, like plants or fungi or some protists, simply because cell walls, it's just that extra added layer. There's the cell wall, then the plasma membrane in plant cells, whereas animal cells just have that plasma membrane. So things are going to react differently in animal cells and plant cells. So let's first quickly talk about isotonic solutions. A cell that's immersed in an isotonic solution will have no net movement of water. So when we were doing our dialysis lab, if you had the negative control of the water inside the dialysis tubing as well as the water in the cup, you had just put it into an isotonic solution. There should have been no net movement of water in there. This is what we're really trying to aim for in all living cells, because it means that the cell is not going to swell or lyse, that sort of thing. The concentration of non-penetrating solutes inside the cell is equal to that on the outside of the cell. That just means that there's the same amount of water inside and outside, there's the same amount of solutes inside and outside, and water will diffuse into and out of the cell at the same rate, right? So it's sort of a one-to-one exchange. Hypertonic solutions is when a cell is immersed in a solution where there is more solutes outside than inside the cell. So it's immersed into this hypertonic solution. It's going to lose water to their extracellular surroundings. So just like we saw in that first image with the tube and the membrane on the inside, and the water moves from where there's a little bit of solutes to where there's a lot of solutes. In this instance, that was a hypertonic solution. Hyper meaning more or greater than or whatever, and tonic being solutes or, something else that's not water. The concentration of these solutes is higher outside of the cell, so water is going to move to the extracellular fluid. This is not good for cells. Cells will shrivel and die. So animal cells essentially will just, the water will go out, it'll shrivel. In plant cells, it's a little bit different. The vacuole that, contains all the water in the cell will shrink, and the plasma membrane kind of pulls away from the cell wall itself. So that's sort of why your plants will wither and sort of kind of lose their balance and sort of flop over and die when they don't have enough water. A hypotonic solution is exactly the opposite of hypertonic. This is when there's not enough solutes, hypo meaning, or not enough, but there's a lesser concentration, hypo meaning lower than inside the cell. So a cell immersed in a hypotonic solution will gain water. So the concentration of solutes is lower outside the cell than it is inside the cell. And remember, water is going to move from low solute concentration to high solute concentration, always. Okay, so if there's more solutes outside the cell than inside, oh wait, that's hyper, we're in hypo. If there's more solutes inside the cell than outside, then the water from the extracellular solution is going to be rushed into the cell. Animal cells will swell and lyse, so water is going to rush in and it's going to explode. Plant cells work really well, right? So plant cells in this environment, they maintain turgor pressure in this way. So yeah, you kind of want your plants in a hypotonic solution. Water potential. So we did a lab on this. Water potential is a physical property that predicts the direction of the water flow. So we can think of this mathematically before we even test it out in a practical manner. This includes the effect of solute concentration and the physical pressure of our atmosphere. Water will flow from areas of high water potential to areas of low water potential. They will flow from areas of low solute to areas of high solute, and they will flow from high pressure to areas of low pressure. If anyone's ever seen like a leak in the side of a pool or something like that, you know this last one pretty well. Ooh, that was fun. Areas of high pressure would be like inside of the pool, all the water pressure pushing on the outside, and then little holes poked into the side of it, and all of a sudden all the water starts coming out. So here's the formula. We use this Greek letter psi. It represents water potential. I like to think of it as Poseidon's trident, the water god. It's measured in megapascals. 1 megapascal is 10 bars. This is just a way that we measure pressure. Don't worry about the units so much. Don't get tripped up on that. The concept behind it's way more important. You have your solute potential or your osmotic potential. An increase in solute causes binding to move free water, so it reduces water potential. So increasing in solutes makes water move more freely. Expressed it as a negative number, pure water is 0 megapascals. The solute potential could be either a variable that we give you or something that you figure out based on the other variables in the equation. Pressure potential is the physical pressure put on a solution. It can be either positive or negative. For atmospheric pressure, in open air, our pressure potential is 0 megapascals. The reason for that is because we're in normal atmospheric pressure, which unless we go really high up on the top of a mountain or down in the bottom of the ocean, it's always going to be the same no matter where we are on the planet, for the most part. So how do we calculate solute potential? So that's this variable right up here. Sometimes it'll be given to you, as I mentioned. Sometimes you have to figure it out based on these other variables. Solute potential, the first variable over here is your ionic constant. It's the number of particles formed. If no ions are formed, ionization constant is 1. For the most part, your ionization constants are going to be 1 for most of the solutes that we'll be working with in this class. Then you have your molar concentration. Your molar concentration will most likely be given to you. And then your pressure constant, thank goodness it's a constant, right? So we're going to measure it in either, this or this, depending on what the equation calls for, whether we're going to measure it in liter bars mole per K or whatever. And then finally, temperature in Kelvin. Kelvin is the temperature scale that we use for these kinds of equations, and it's just taking 273 and adding whatever degrees Celsius it is. So let's practice. Concentration of NaCl inside a plant cell is 1.5 molar. Which way will water diffuse into a cell if the cell is placed in a higher molar concentration? And water will leave the cell. For these ones, I like drawing pictures, right? So we have inside a plant cell 0.15. Cool. Outside we have 0.3. Ooh, that's weird. You saw me draw that 3. There we go. Outside is 0.3. So water likes to move from an area of low to high concentration, so water will leave the cell. Low solute concentration to high solute concentration. Here's another one. So molar concentration of sugar solution is 0.3 molars. Beaker sitting on your desk, so that's going to have our atmospheric pressure right over here. Great. In the open air. Calculate the water potential, the solute potential at 27 degrees Celsius. So now we're just going to plug and play, right? We know our ionization constant is going to be 1. We put a negative in front of it. Great. We are given our molar concentration right up here. Okay. Sitting on our desk, so that's our pressure. Boom. And then temperature, right? Which is just 273 plus whatever the temperature is at 27 degrees Celsius. Once you plug them all in, you just put it into your calculator and you come up with negative 7.48 bars. Great. They look really complicated. All of these letters and these numbers, these crazy liter bar mole per K, they sound crazy, but a lot of it is just identifying your variables, plugging it into an equation, and solving. Great. Using this information, now solve for the water potential of the beaker. Great. Here's the equation we're going to use. We're never going to make you memorize that equation. It's just not going to happen. We're going to give it to you. Same thing with this up here. It's part of your equation sheet. So, we know this from our previous problem. We know our pressure potential because we're in normal atmosphere. That's our bars. So, that plus 0, boom, done. That's it. That's all it is. Okay, let's do another one. Calculate the solute potential at 2 molar NaCl, 30 degrees Celsius. Find your answer. So we're going to be using this equation. Okay. Ionization constant for NaCl. You look it up and you're given that it's -2. Okay. Again, that's going to be given to you. Your concentration is 0.2 moles. You're going to be using that constant there for pressure. And finally, 30 degrees Celsius plus the 2.73. It's 303 Kelvin. You plug it into your calculator and you get this number here. Lovely. So, it's another simple one. You just plug it in and you solve for the equation. So, the value for water potential in root tissue of a plant has found to be this. So, we already got one variable. If you place the root tissue into 0.2 molar sucrose, 20 degrees Celsius in an open beaker, what is the water potential of the solution? Which direction will the net flow of water be? Now, this is the type of question that we're going to be seeing. This is more like a college board question. Which direction will the net flow be? Because all this math is great and all, but how do we even apply to it? Great. So we look up ionization constant. It's 1. Love it. We have our concentration in moles. We have our constant, and we have our temperature. 20 degrees Celsius plus the 273 gives us 293 Kelvin. We're going to plug it in, and we're going to get that solute potential. Now, we take a look at our pressure potential. We see, oh, it's on our planet. It's going to be 0. So that water potential, the solute, is also going to be the potential for the total system here. So what does that mean? That means that water will move into the solution, which means it's going to be moving out of the cell. The root is negative 4.6, and the solution itself is negative 4.8. So it is greater inside the root than it is in the solution. So water is going to be moving from high solute to low solute. And water will move into the solution, which means it's going to move out of the cell. So we'll shrivel. All right, that's it. 16 minutes. Feel free to go back if you need to do the practice problems more. Pause the video to take notes, and I will see you in class. Thanks, guys.